Okay, I'd like to call tonight's Board of Commissioners workshop to order. If we'd all please stand for a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nate. Okay. All right, first up on our agenda this evening is a review of draft resolution and plan for the Schwab Major Development 1470 Brookside Road. Mr. Jones.
Good evening, commissioners. So we have a draft resolution that was circulated for you for consideration, as well as all the staff reviews for this subdivision that's been in front of the township now for about a year. There are 8 new residential lots that are proposed, as well as a lot for stormwater management that you can see over on the eastern end. The stormwater management lot abuts Brookside Road. It includes a basin, and in addition to including a basin, it also includes a walkway, walking path and street trees up and down Brookside Road. We've worked closely with the applicant's engineer regarding the cul-de-sac design and the number of homes. They've actually, as they've redesigned the basin, they have gone from 10 lots and 10 homes to 8. I should also note that we worked with them to change the name. This development immediately takes its access off of Harvest Fields. It does not take access off of Brookside Road. And it currently would have a cross street with Lamb Terrace. We've renamed it with them Lamb Court for emergency access purposes. So there's a differentiation between the new section of the neighborhood as well as the old section of the existing Harvest Fields. We have worked with them to move the street trees behind the sidewalk to avoid utility conflicts, which they have a waiver request in for. This is something that moving forward in the future, we would expect to change ordinance to comply, because we've seen after about 20 years what it does when you plant them where our ordinance calls for, and there's conflicts with utilities and such. We're waiting to hear from the post office about the individual mailboxes that they're proposing. If not, they're gonna need gang mailboxes, which will likely be put in at the end of the cul-de-sac. And another important point to note is lot 7 there, which is the long lot that's at the southernmost end of the plan. They did find a delineated wetland there, so they are gonna have to observe our wetland and state wetland setback requirements. So we did have a requirement from the planning commission, or a recommendation from the planning commission that I would recommend to you as well, that both the record plan and any lot plans show that. So when they come in for zoning applications, there's no conflict. There's clear notification that that area is unable to be touched. So beyond that, they have worked with us closely regarding planning items. And they've also worked with the township engineer very closely on stormwater management and general engineering design items too. At this point in time, we'd like to take your feedback to incorporate, to potentially bring back to them to see if there's any comments that you would have that you'd like for us to relay, but also to see if there's anything as far as as the resolution goes, or the plan that you'd like to see changed on the planning perspective. At this point, zoning and planning are more or less satisfied with how this has come out over the last year. But I would like to invite the township engineers to speak a little bit more in detail with respect to traffic design and our stormwater design for the site as well.
Well, thanks, Nate. Yeah, traffic wise, there's not much to talk about because it is literally just a cul-de-sac with 8 new houses. There is obviously no access onto Brookside. The configuration is really was always expected. I think the fact that they're not pushing out to Brookside Road and creating another road access on the Brookside, which is obviously extremely heavily traveled in the first place, that's a good thing, in my opinion. Stormwater management wise, this is unique in that the site is in a conditional no detention district, which in theory permits them to not have a detention basin. But we went through this with them. I think they revised the basin 4, if not 5 times. The basin did get considerably larger from the original submission. Their initial submission had a 15-foot high retaining wall that was literally at the end of the cul-de-sac, and ran along kind of like kind of parallel to Brookside Road, but up against the cul-de-sac and then kind of sort of straight across and then made a big L alongside the existing house parcel. It was ugly. We got to revise it quite a bit. And the other noteworthy part of this is that the basin is designed to specifically have no direct discharge to the storm sewer system. It will be infiltration only. And where that's beneficial is that the analysis that they prepared for the piping, it will have a pipe connection to the cross pipe in Brookside Road. But that will be just purely as not an emergency spillway, but as a kind of emergency, secondary emergency spillway if it was ever needed. But the primary discharge up to and including the 100-year storm will be through infiltration. It's a little unique, but what's beneficial about it is that the receiving system was not designed, as were most systems, not designed for the 100-year storm or anything above maybe a 10-year storm. And adding any more water to the system would have created issues for the township. So there won't be discharge from the site during all of the storms, which is kind of nice. It's rare. It is unique. So I wanted to explain that just because we beat them up on the design because the retaining wall that they came in with was no good. Then they came in with 2 8-foot high walls staggered. That was no good. They came in with another design where the basin berm was in the right of way. We made them move it out. So all of that led to where we are now, which is a basin that was much bigger. The basin lot itself got bigger, and it will be privately owned and maintained. And that's one of the reasons that I'm going through all this detail is because of the site conditions, which is give or take 30 to 40 foot drop from Lamb Terrace down to Brookside Road. Putting in the basin with the side slopes per the ordinance was somewhat impractical just because it's relatively speaking very steep. It was kind of tough to make everything fit, but under the circumstances, I'm okay with the 3-to-1 slopes for this one. In large part, they're not gaining lots by doing it, and like I said, there will be no discharge to the township system. So that's it. Other than that, yeah, there are a bunch of cleanup type things in our review. But as we discussed at the planning commission, I don't think there's anything left in my letter that would create any layout changes or anything like that. They still have to get through the conservation district, so we are not sure if there are going to be additional changes to the basin or not. And they still have to get a PennDOT permit for the pedestrian path that's going to be installed on along Brookside Road.
Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments for any of the plan or the resolution or any feedback that we might be able to take?
Commissioner Roberts.
Okay, my concern, it's only a 8-home subdivision, so it's 8 homes that have to bear the cost of maintaining the detention pond. And infiltration could lead to sinkholes, which could be rather expensive to repair. And so I would want to have some kind of an assurance that the developer would be leaving enough funds for the homeowners association to help them with the expense of
Expensive going through them.
yeah. And so that's my concern, is the financial viability of the homeowners association to support something like that.
All right, I mean, and we can work with the solicitor's office to figure out how to best arrive at that and have that put in. Whether it's the approval resolution or the development agreement or both.
We do review the declaration too, so we review the declaration as part of the approval too for the HOA, so we can when we review the declaration as well.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring it up, that it is a concern of mine.
Right.
And. You know, the Harris York have. They're maintaining their detention pond. Makes it, there's two homeowners associations there, one of them maintains the detention pond and their. Homeowners fees are substantially higher. Because of the cost of the detention pond, and that's a lot more homes, so.
Mhm.
I would not want to be. One of the, have to pay for
Right.
fixing them.
And for what it's worth, we've expressed that to these guys every single time they've come in to talk to us about the design. You know, the township is underlaid with limestone for probably the majority of the township that's somewhere. And they're like, oh, no, no big deal, we got details on the plan and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Violet?
Yeah, the roadways are, it wasn't mentioned, is this public road or private?
These would be public roads because it's only an eight lot subdivision, so the cul-de-sac and the stem road that reach to Ham Terrace would be offered for dedication. The stormwater system would remain private.
And as has been the policy, there are no waivers needed for the road design.
Right,
It is per the ordinance.
only reason I mentioned that in this case, people that live there maybe have wanted it private. Because there's no through traffic, the only traffic that would come in there. People that don't live there would get people lost and just swinging around. So,
But then there's.
and the township, in the past, it was a split, opinion. Some people would rather have it private than public. But I think in this case, I see what you guys think, the rest of you might be desirable for them to have it private and beneficial to the township.
Except for the cost, again, of maintaining it.
Right.
And we have been following just 8 people, we had gone through that before, that's why we decided on. Public for. Well, supported your ordinance.
Do that on it. All right.
And, how much is the fee for. Fire hydrants these days? For perpetual maintenance?
We did about that at the resident, I think it's 15. We increased it significantly, like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It used to be 2,500, but it's now up to like maybe 15,000.
15,000.
Yeah.
And it's that,
It's never enough, unfortunately, with, increases that we see with our water service. For maintenance.
Hey, just another question, as far as the road, that the radius in the cul-de-sac, must that be big enough for a fire truck to turn around or just to get in?
No, they've provided templates for that.
All right, so I got a couple of comments. The first one is I'm always against private roads because I think we've seen, well, private developments in particular, because we're seeing in other places where the developer has not lived up to their end of the bargain, and now it's on a bunch of people to fix things that they weren't necessarily anticipating. That being said, I think it's good that they have responsibility for the basin, just mostly for comments Commissioner Robert made. My bigger question is more about friendly neighborhoods, and this is going to back up to the camp, which we already have a lot of issues with in terms of neighbors complaining about what goes on there and the hours and noise and stuff like that. How do we as a township prepare for that in terms of notification, especially to the 3 homeowners that are gonna back right up to that camp? To me, this is one of those situations where people on City Drive, we can't help so much because they already live there. These are people that were basically saying, yes, you can live here, but they're gonna be dealing with a nuisance from the day they move in. Do we have anything in our, I guess, in our code, in our ordinance that requires notification to these people when they're buying? So that after they move in and they're there 3 weeks and it's the summertime and it gets loud and it gets obnoxious, they're coming to us asking us to do something we can't fix.
So just to clarify, there is one lot, the first lot on the left as you enter, the development would back up or, you know, abut the property. The other three are buffered by another lot that's part of the lot one. However, I understand your point. We do have a disclosure ordinance when that we've adopted when properties transfer new homes like this. However, I'd have to look into that a little further to see about nuisances included in that. And, you know, I'd wanna consult with the solicitor to see what we could let people know what is a nuisance, or we could just let them know that there is non-residential property that abuts their property.
Right.
That is a camp. I think it would probably, again, I'd have to consult with the solicitor to see what legally we could say that is, but, you know, I see your point and looking at it. Some of it is private. I mean, it's part of, yeah, disclosures on the private side, not necessarily municipal side, so.
Right.
Guess we would have to look and see how much we're
What we can
obligated
say,
to
yes,
versus
yeah.
what we should be saying as well.
Yep.
But we can look into that for sure.
Along those lines, I'm looking at the landscaping plan. There's a tree row in the back of lot one. Thank you, Renee. And that is not shown, it's currently proposed to not be disturbed at all. So that lot, as Vince was pointing out, that's the only one that has direct, you know, connection, so to speak, with the camp. And trees that are there are shown to be protected at least during the course of construction. So that's at least a little bit of a buffer, so to speak, that will be there relative to the approval.
Yeah, and we're gonna wanna make sure that we're on top of that, because we've seen other places where their tree lines are supposed to say where miraculously.
Yeah, they go,
disappear,
yeah.
You know, all right, well, that would be my biggest concern, just because of what we hear from the neighbors on the other side right now.
And the other lot that's right next to it, abutting the camp, that is a kind of, it's going to be combined with the existing lot. So that will not be a new building lot.
Right.
So at least in that regard, that's gonna, for now, I guess, remain untouched.
Okay,
If that helps. I have one more question.
yes, Commissioner Blake.
The tree line we're talking about, is that on the new development slot, you're saying?
Yeah.
So would that be a restriction in there that they can't cut them trees?
Well, right,
How would that be?
as far as the current design is
Right.
concerned, it's shown that all of those trees will be preserved.
So that's a tree restriction that they can't cut.
I
I mean, what would stop the owner from going in and cutting them trees down that they're on his property?
So as part of the land development,
Right,
they would have to stay. Again, I would defer to the solicitor, but I would say as far as once the private property owner goes, as long when they purchase that property, they would have to follow our ordinance as far as how many trees they could cut down.
right.
On
But
their property?
They could cut it, follow the
Um,
ordinance.
If it's not part of a buffer yard that has to remain, which I don't think it is, it's not required by the ordinance because it's not a separate district, zoning district. It's just, it's a non-conforming use that's next to there, still in the suburban district. So I think Commissioner Butler probably right, that a private homeowner could cut trees down and on their property if they wanted to after the fact, if it's not protected buffer on the plant.
Right.
We could take a look and see if we could put a buffer on, talk to the applicant, and
We can discuss it with the applicant for sure. Of note, on any time we receive a subdivision or any land development plan for that matter, we do bring up the importance of keeping existing tree lines in place as opposed to having them taken down and then having small trees put back up. Our ordinance calls for that both in Saldo and zoning, so where we have, you know, ability offer opinion and offer guidance during the land development process is one thing, but as Mr. Tranchuch says, when we get to the part where we have a private property owner, which we'll need to look at that a little bit further. I think for this point in time, talking about further buffering, worthwhile.
But correct me if I'm wrong, though, you'd rather not see a.
No,
private-
I'm
a
just
private
asking,
property owner-
I'm asking legally, you know, we're saying that's the buffer. I'm asking legally if we could enforce them not to cut their trees down. And what made me think of this was when the Veritech warehouse was going through, they were using the railroad's trees as part of their plans as a buffer. And one of us brought it up that you can't use that, the railroad could cut them down tomorrow.
Right.
That's not a buffer for your project.
Yeah, so right now, like, the buffer is shown is on the property owner.
And I, that's up to your team. I just asked a question if it's on the plan as a buffer for the potential homeowner to come in and cut that.
It's actually not on the plan as a buffer.
Yeah, I
Remain, so
yeah.
we can take a look at that.
And I think it's worth, relative
Yeah.
to the conversation, I think it's worth clarifying, they don't have to have a true buffer. The existing trees that are there on that lot one are shown for the purposes of this approval to remain. It provides a buffer, but is not a required buffer. Just to clarify, and that's.
Yeah, I was
what-
just asking.
Yeah.
We have imposed conditions and approvals that require the trees to remain on certain properties, so that would have to be discussed with the applicant, and they would have to covenant not to cut the trees down. The enforcement then becomes an issue, because it'll be a private owner that goes in and
Right.
probably has no idea that they can't cut the trees down, and then once the trees are gone, they're gone, the trees are gone.
I mean, it's in the best interest of the developer to keep it there, but again.
And I think we can stress your
Yeah.
point from earlier.
Yeah, and I think I know what Brian's referring to, Hamilton Boulevard.
Mhm.
All of a sudden the trees
Right.
went away and.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, with this particular design, there's a pretty heavy row of existing trees along the property line here that we heavily stressed that we wanted them to keep. Like this along here. And here, we were like, hey, keep that because, you know, these folks along here are gonna be flipping out if you just cut all that down. It provides a buffer, technically not a buffer, you don't need a buffer residential against residential. But we stress it's in your best interests and everybody's best interest. Keep what you can, except for whatever you gotta cut down to put the road.
Well, I think it helps the back of that second lot there now, they've discovered wetland issues.
Right.
So there's less reason to take the trees down.
Exactly.
There's less reason, but just another story, then I'm gonna shut up on this. Graymore years ago, never owned the property that Graymore was gonna be built on. The development where the house fire was just, they came in and I was just in the public, why are you cutting all the trees down? You're ruining this and that. And I remember Mrs. Nepper, probably remember that name, Renee, Ruth Nepper, she owned Graymore. She walked in, well, you're more than welcome, you can buy it and then you can keep all them trees up. And the room went silent. Anyway.
So, last clarification, that the fee is 15,000. Fire.
Any other questions or comments?
So that'll be another condition.
Correct, yeah. We have that noted, okay.
Okay, next item up, review of draft resolution and plan for the Sprouts 2550 Route 100 commercial development. Mr. Jones.
Yes, so, board members, this is, part of Commercial Spring Creek property. As everybody is aware of, or may be aware of, at the other end of the site is the existing St. Luke's Medical Office Building that's been constructed for a number of years. What the applicant is proposing and has been, talked about now for quite some time is the region's first Sprouts grocery. Also included as part of the application is a retail / commercial building and potentially a bank. At this point in time, the applicants do not have a specific user or users for those buildings, but they are having them in as placeholders. Recognizing that both the existing St. Luke's and the Sprouts will both act as anchors for the site. At Planning Commission, a number of items were discussed. What was brought up particularly was the quality of the St. Luke's site and asking for that to continue along with everything else. As anybody who drives down Route 100 can see, there's the street walls that go along Route 100. There's the high level of architectural excellence that the building has. There's a generous landscaping plan. And there's the desire to see that continue up northward towards the new Sauerkraut Lane extension, which will basically be, this will be at the intersection of both of those. So we've worked with the applicants because as this is part of the Spring Creek Settlement subdivision agreement, it is prior to our design guidelines that were adopted by zoning. And it's held to an older zoning ordinance, but the applicants have recognized the importance of creating a really special development here at this intersection. That what was discussed at planning commission a lot was both pedestrians and bikers will be able to access from neighborhoods immediately abutting to get to the grocery store, to get to potentially a restaurant that could be in that retail commercial center eventually, and to get to their doctor's office. So we focus very heavily on making sure and working with them to ensure that there's paths and sidewalks throughout the site that can get people from the abutting residential neighborhoods to this building. Well, to the buildings, I should say. And again, to have that level of excellence as you drive up and down Route 100, you'll see great landscaping, the streetscaping, and very nice architecturals as well. Renee, can we pull up the elevation? We had a meeting over the summer with discussion points, particularly about the architecture. It was something that the planning commission was very interested in. This Sprouts is going to have frontage on the new Sauerkraut Lane extension, as well as Route 100. So it has double frontage. So we wanted to basically impart upon the applicant the importance of making sure that we have the street appeal on Sauerkraut as well as Route 100. And there were a lot of discussions about the importance of that with them, and they agreed entirely. So what you see actually is the top one is what has been shown on renderings previously, which is basically the Sprout prototype for the entrance. And on the lower level, you'll see the Route 100 frontage, which is going to include a parapet with Sprout sign along the side of it, faux windows, and gooseneck lamps. So both sides of the building are going to have frontage treatments. So when you're driving up and down Route 100, you'll have that storefront feel as well as on Sauerkraut. Again, I should note that there are paths that lead pedestrians to get to both the Sprouts and all the other buildings. If we go back to the plan, again, they run right on Route 100 and then they run throughout the site, basically north to south, connecting the buildings in between the parking lots. The planning for the landscaping is quite generous. There's a lot of flowering trees and a lot of buffering for shrub buffering for both the business end of all the buildings, as far as deliveries and trash pickup, which will also have enclosures, but also within the parking areas as well. Last but not least, we worked very closely with regards to the stormwater treatment for the site. The stormwater treatment for the site is basically not just part of Sprouts, but also part of the Sauerkraut Lane extension. And it is going to basically follow what we had at our Brandywine Firehouse Swale project in terms of design. The basins are going to be naturalized. There's going to be a number of flowering trees and shrubs, as well as hardwood specimen trees that are put throughout the basin. So instead of the typical basin that we've had for a number of years that basically has a soldier row of evergreen trees around it, we're actually going to have essentially flowering meadow garden with a lot of specimens in there that'll be pleasant to drive by and also be good for the residents who currently live on Quarry Road. And it's following our example that we're trying to impart throughout the township, which is that naturalized aesthetic feature. I should also note, we worked with the applicants to note that we're going to try and continue our excellence in connectivity for paths and trails throughout the township. This stormwater basin site abuts the Muse Tract, which the township now owns. And then beyond that is both Quarry Park and Creamery Park. And we were hoping to, as part of the Saldo requirements, but also as part of the general design, impart paths along the frontage on Quarry and Route 100 to continue people to be able to walk from Sprouts to the fields. when there's games, or to our parks, or eventually to the overall greenway trail that we hope to have along the entirety of the creek throughout the township, and just get that connectivity of this brand new development in there. I should note the applicants are interested in doing that, but they have asked for a deferral on the path as they build out the site as a whole. We've been working with the township solicitor about a timeline for that and how to work, to factor that into any approval, which is in the draft resolution that you've seen. I'm interested to take any feedback you have on that, but by and large, we've tried to hit walkability and paths, excellence in architectural and landscape design, wise stormwater management, streetscaping, and frankly, for each of those points, we've been able to work with the applicants amicably to get them. So we do feel from a planning perspective, this is gonna be a positive project moving forward. As far as Route 100 goes, when you drive by, that feeling you get when you drive by and see the St. Luke's, it'll just continue the whole way up. So with that, traffic is obviously very important for this, and the mechanics of the stormwater planning are very important for this, as well as the general engineering into that. I hand it over to Mr. McAdam to speak on the technical details for you.
So thanks, Nate. So the stormwater management for this was complicated in that when the St. Luke's MOB and the other development happened to the south, there were a couple basins built, and the two basins that currently exist where the bank and the retail box will be, they will be filled in. And the basins that Nate was describing that are going to be naturalized, they are basically part of what I think is probably like a 10-year design where the Janel folks contemplated all of this happening, with both the improvements along Route 100 that are required, Sauerkraut Lane extension, as well as the full build out of this particular site. So it's kind of complicated in that they're taking out two basins, putting in two new basins that are much bigger. But also it's worth noting that all of the stormwater management, that is going to be, all of the stormwater that's going to be managed in those two basins is accounting for all of this site, as well as all of the improvements on Route 100. So it's something that they've been tracking all along, so much so that the PennDOT permit that's imminent shows different basins, and for the sake of getting that HOP in hand, so that they can start finishing the Sauerkraut Lane extension, they needed to do that. But they will almost immediately be submitting an amendment to account for this basin design, which is ultimately what really has to happen anyway. And this basin design has been coordinated with the Conservation District, as well as with our office, to make sure that it's compliant with all the current standards. The PennDOT basin, I'll call it, that's on the current HOP plans was not necessarily a placeholder, but it was there because it needed to be, and it was going to be okay, except as things evolved, the basin design had to change. So it all, at the end of the day, it's all going to be accounted for appropriately. But it just created all kinds of hurdles for them. And at any rate, it was kind of complicated, even though at the end of the day, you still wind up with two basins on the property on the north side of Sauerkraut Lane extension. Traffic wise, we discussed this as well at the planning commission meeting. The way this played out, because of the settlement agreement, they kind of were locked into, hey, we're not doing anything else except for the improvements on Route 100 and the Sauerkraut Lane extension. Don't talk to us about it again, more or less. And they did provide some updated traffic analysis, not a full traffic study, but an updated analysis that confirms that they have accounted for the trips as they exist today. The traffic engineer, our traffic engineer, wants them to tweak that a little bit and just clarify some things. I don't think it's anything that's going to provide any dramatic changes to what's currently proposed, but it will be another layer of another belt and suspenders that, relative to peak Saturday traffic that you get from retail stuff, that it's at least been factored in. I'm comfortable that what we'll eventually see is going to be what you see right now. The applicant here seems comfortable that it will be, and that they'll just address what my traffic engineer is asking for. But I think it's just worth pointing out that they did do some additional studies and counts, relative to today, because the stuff that was discussed and approved as part of the settlement agreement was, what, 10 or 12 years ago. So it's a bit outdated, and to their credit, they did provide some updated stuff. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. We do have some comments and cleanup stuff, but for all intents and purposes, this is in a position where I don't really see much changing, relative to them addressing my comments. We're not looking for anything. I don't think there's gaps in the design that are gonna result in a major change to the layout, the grading on the site, or anything like that. I think they pointed out that the detention basins do discharge onto the former Muse tract that is owned by the township now. They discharge into an existing swale. It's been there. It shows up on historical aerial photos for years. They are discharging into it. They're a good distance away from the property line. And they're providing a significant amount of riprap to ensure that there's no erosion. And that the flows will obviously be reduced as a result of the design, but they're going into that same place that they exit the site right now. In order to have a coverage, so to speak, we're still asking them to get permission from the township to discharge onto the township property. So other than that, it's commercial development. It's complicated because of the Sauerkraut Lane extension not being complete. And the PennDOT improvements not being complete. But the PennDOT improvements that we ultimately will get are over and above what was previously proposed as part of the HOP application from 7 or 8 years ago. We verified that what's on these plans, well, not the land development plans, but the HOP plans, is over and above what they had previously proposed.
Yeah, if I could actually add on to that, I think it's important to know, again, what we're seeing here as far as the application goes, the uses that are proposed and the layout, it is in compliance with the settlement subdivision agreement, and a lot of what I discussed in terms of architecture, streetscaping and whatnot is above and beyond the requirements of the settlement subdivision agreement. So there is compliance from the applicants on that, and again, going above and beyond. Also, over on by the stormwater, you should just note, we have asked them to show the final layout as part. Right now, you're seeing a plan that shows the basin with the roadway, but remember, there is going to be the terminus of the old quarry road there via that hammerhead.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and so that is how the residents there are going to be able to basically traverse their way in and out to get onto the Sauerkraut Lane extension. So we have asked that the final plan show that in detail, so that it has the final road configuration. But again, much of this is overlaid off of the Sauerkraut Lane the Sauerkraut Lane extension plan, as well as the Spring Creek Settlement subdivision agreement. Both of those were overarching factors into the overall design, and then a lot of our new 2019 design standards were voluntarily added to this project. So Nick, can I jump in? Just correct me if I'm wrong, but the applicant did say that to make that unified development, they were gonna would continue the street wall and fencing around the development. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, the whole way,
If I missed that,
Yeah, so it's gonna go all the way down Route 100, and it's also gonna go along the Sauerkraut Lane extension, so it will wrap the whole site, yeah.
All right, Commissioner Roberts.
Okay, are either of the ponds gonna be wet bottom ponds, or is it intended that they're gonna drain completely?
I don't think they will be wet bottoms. They're naturalized. They are gonna be wet to some degree, but they're not gonna be ponds.
seasonally they'll
Yeah.
likely be wet in spring or at the end of winter, or when we're having summer storms, but they're not designed, to the best of my knowledge, to be a permanent wet.
No.
And, a condition of the occupancy for the Strouds is that the Sauerkraut Lane bypass be operated. Is that correct?
Yes, that's where the main access is coming from, so.
Yes. They were reminded more than once
Yeah, it's been made clear to the applicant.
that you're not getting the CO until that connection to Sauerkraut. Sauerkraut Lane extension is done and you can actually use that. But we are not letting them go out to Shonen.
Perfect.
Any other comments or questions? All right, so I have a couple. First, and I just want to make it very clear. I know it's been mentioned several times, but this development is part of the Spring Creek Properties settlement that predates even my time on this board. So we're talking more than 12 years ago. It's not a new development. It was something that was negotiated very, very long time ago. And because of that, it's actually under different ordinances that have been passed in the last 12 years. My first question is, since this is under a 2006, 2007 ordinance, are they required to build all the buildings before they get their CO?
Well, it's 2010 ordinance.
Okay.
It is specifically 2010 ordinances. As far as the buildings being built, I'm not sure about
It
that.
doesn't, I would say we'd have to look at it, but.
Yeah, we
There's
don't
no
look at
commercial.
I know we-
Coordinated commercial,
Yeah.
right, so coordinated commercial, they, and.
Yeah,
I gotta-
I mean, we could look closer at the ordinance, but when it comes to commercial, we approve the land development, then as they get tenants, they come in and they build those, they don't build them entirely on spec, and in fact, you know. It could end up that they might need to change the layout of one of the buildings, like the bank, to meet the standards of whoever comes in to use it, so it is a land development that's gonna be approved based upon. Those two buildings being on spec. And we have reminded them that any change to the layout or the footprint of those structures would require a modification of plan that would need to come back in front of the board for another approval.
But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, my biggest concern is you're gonna have Sprouts, you're gonna have St. Luke's and nothing in between but dirt and grass for years because of market conditions, and they just don't have a tenant. And that's a concern. Obviously, it all depends on what we can and cannot enforce, but I don't want this to be Weiss. I don't want this to be Weiss, where we're building a Weiss and you're supposed to have two out parcels that were never built. Or Taco Bell, where they built Taco Bell and never built the second facility. Understood. Because there is I guess a ugliness to that. I mean, I don't necessarily want it to be Woodmont, where they have to build retail and they have no tenants that are gonna be empty forever. But at least it's a finished product.
We can work proactively with the township solicitor's office with potentially a condition of approval. That would require something, but again, this is something that we've also tried to pass over time because of the way the MPC is written and whatnot, they wanted to come in and basically they noted to us that they were trying to do this all at the same time so they could account for their stormwater calculations with the fact that they would have X amount of impervities as they continue to get new users. So we can see if there's something that we could add into the approval resolution that would eventually come before you to handle that. It's something that we've also looked at for a while to try to figure out here too.
The second thing is the walkway, pathway, sidewalk around the basin area. I would want that to be a deferral, to be installed at such a time that the township asks for it to be installed. And the reason is, I don't want to encourage anybody to be crossing Route 100 there to get to a sidewalk that's a partial sidewalk. I'd rather them come up to the light and cross where there is a sidewalk. We're gonna want it at some point. I just don't think we want it right now. I'm fairly confident that the developer is okay with that. But I want to make sure that we're clear about it, that it's not a waiver, it's a deferral to such a time that we determine it needs to go in, because we may want to connect the parks at some point and make it more long.
They specifically requested the deferral and it was a large discussion point during the planning commission meeting, and the planning commissioners also felt that, you know, one, we'd like to see the path come in, but two, obviously for health safety reasons, we had members of the public here mentioning that and continuing to grow our pedestrian and trail network. Same reason, there will be a time for it. When that time comes, the township will call the deferral and they understand that, so.
And then the third thing, and this is kind of just experience. I understand they're gonna have to put in the Sauerkraut Lane extension to get to the back of their property. I don't want this to be putting the sauerkraut lane extension to the back of their property. And the last quarter mile that connects to sauerkraut takes another 8 years. I mean, literally, the sauerkraut extension has been going in for more than 12 years. We now have it finished on one end and we have it finished to Route 100. I don't want this to become, we're gonna finish it to the back road so you can get the sprouts, but in like 3 or 4 years, we're gonna finish the rest of it.
If I may, I could probably provide a little bit of background. Something we would want to be mindful of. The developer actually does not have the kind of purview of completing that next section. It's about, I think, 400 feet past that driveway entrance, as another developer that constructed the other portion of the roadway from Spring Creek to its current location has the responsibility to make that connection point from where you see it currently going to the existing quarry to just probably near this component of the development. As I understand it, knowing that it's the developers handling the entirety of the project for the extension. The holdup from that other party is the fact that this stormwater facility, as mentioned by Nate and Brian, also handles the roadway water from the sauerkraut extension as well as the Route 100 corridor, and it's under a different, of course, yes.
NPDES permit.
And that has been the delay for the developer, the other developer, completing that short segment. So I would say it may be out of the Sprout developer control to finish that next component. However, making sure the stormwater that happens allows the other developer to complete their project. So I don't know if we'll be able to hold this developer for that next segment as they it's another person's obligation.
But they're responsible for the stormwater management plan, which allows the other developer to finish their part.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
And that is, I think the key is, as Bruce is alluding to, it's because of overlapping contractual responsibilities, permitting responsibility, it's been a mess, so that once this HOP is issued, I kind of hope and I expect that everything will fall into place, but Bruce is right, God knows how it's got all whacked up, but it's a nightmare, and I think everybody's expecting that when the HOP is issued, that will allow Prologis guys to come and finish their part, Jan will finish their part, and everybody goes away.
Yeah, I mean, I just cut a ribbon on a brand new playground that I'd like people to be able to get to without
Yeah.
driving, 15 minutes.
All the way around, right.
So it sounds like it's not guaranteed though.
Oh,
Is it?
nothing with this project that doesn't be guaranteed.
Am I taking that the right?
Well, it's two people that have to finish a project, and it all depends on the stormwater management facility that this developer is responsible for, and making all the right things aligned. This was a agreement that has never been good from the day it was signed, and when you say you don't know how it all got cut up, I can tell you how it got cut up. It was like, whatever you want, just do it and don't put it in a quarry. So, really nobody had any forethought of thinking about it. This is, if there's a thorn in my side, this is the one, and I'm very happy with what the developer is proposing for here. It's just, I've been waiting 12 years for this road to be finished. And even tonight, people were saying, when is Quarry Road gonna open? Like, Quarry Road's not gonna open, it's gonna be a dead end, but the other road is going in. And we hope that within a year, this 13-year nightmare of an extension is done. So I know, I am sure the developer understands the importance of it, both developers. I wanna make sure that we give the proper amount of initiative to see this completed, sometime in the year 2026.
I'm looking at the PennDOT plans to see like.
Mhm.
The PennDOT plans primarily are focused on the intersection itself and then that first stretch.
Yeah.
Sprouts driveway. And I just wanna see if we can kind of tag this in, but the NPDES permit. overlap is weird. They did it based on watershed, not based on the agreement, which was.
And Nate, what is the Gaddy property? Was that 8 acres?
Excuse me?
That the Gaddy property where the ponds are going, wasn't that like 8, 9 acres of land?
So.
Yeah, so I mean, we're talking a sizable stormwater management area that should be able to handle
Oh, yeah.
the water that's there, it's just getting it in.
Question is the pipes getting to it.
Very good question. Okay, any other comments or questions?
Just one comment, the path deferral, I think in addition to your reasons, you don't wanna put the cart in front of the horse, not that we build paths and we destroy them, finishing up the remainder of the project. So.
If I can ask a question, the way we wrote that in the draft, the condition for the deferral, and discussed it at the planning commission, and we wanted to put like a deadline of some sort on them doing that, but if the preference of the board is that it defer until you call it in, we can write it that way. So I guess the feedback you're giving us is that it's best to just keep it at the discretion of the board.
Well, I think at this
Well, it's written in 2 years now.
yeah, I mean, at this point in time, we don't know that it's ever gonna be feasible to put something there. And you're talking about a side of Route 100 where no one lives, so it's not like you're trying to get people from Spring Creek Road down 100 to get there. That's completely vacant other than the lodge. And again, I don't want to encourage people on Columbine or any of those to be crossing, mid-block on Route 100 to get to a sidewalk because it's closer on that side, because that can cause a lot.
Well, and there is not but there is connection through the development.
Correct.
They don't need, that there
Correct.
isn't, like, there is not a connection.
But by putting a sidewalk there, even if it's 2 years from
100%
now,
agree.
it's still, there will be people who feel like they're encouraged to just run across the
Right,
road,
yeah.
and that's not what we want.
Right, and that, in fairness, that was discussed at length at the planning commission, because they didn't, channel representative didn't want that, and that's one of the reasons that he threw out there as a justification for it. We understand why you want it, we're willing to work with you, but we don't want people darting across Route 100. That was one of the reasons, and it made sense.
Yeah.
It wasn't the usual, hey, let's just kick it down the road.
We don't want it, it's always Jay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, yeah, but again,
You don't want to encourage it.
yeah, I don't want to encourage it. I don't want to make you see it's trying to be brand new sidewalk and say, well, let me just run across. I mean, it's bad enough that, that at least there's a signalized intersection at South Route 100 where you can cross. I mean, I don't think we should encourage people crossing even on the north side of South Route, nor the south side, because at least you're going to a property,
Yeah.
otherwise you're going to somebody's backyard, and that's even questionable, but. Okay. Any other commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Okay, next item, review pension committee appointment recommendation for Anne Marie Dobson, Mrs. Flexer.
Yes, there's 2 vacancies currently on the pension committee, and that's due to Mr. Waltmeyer and Ms. Conklin's retirement. So right now, the pension committee is recommending to appoint Anne Marie Dobson, who is our new finance director. She has a lot of experience with pension plans, so we feel she'll be a good fit.
Okay, any questions from the board? Okay, review building code board of appeals appointment recommendation for Bud Kaler. Mrs. Flexer.
So we had a resignation because one of the members was actually moving out of the township, and that happened in March of 2025. We've been soliciting for volunteers for all of these months, and this was actually the first time that we got an application for this position. And with this position, they have to have experience with building construction. So the chair of the Building Code Board of Appeals, Chris Holler, he is recommending that Mr. Kaler be appointed to that position.
Any questions or comments? Okay, next item, review ordinance for opening of road right of ways. Mr. Jones.
Yes, so we've been working on this ordinance now for some time to basically help administer the process in the township for parties who would be interested in doing work within our right of way, whether it's the installation or repair of utilities, or anything that you might find within general road right of way. What we've tried to do is put together a very linear ordinance that basically identifies the steps in the process. And that is in many ways based off of internal policy that Mr. Cisco and CKS currently already have in place. We're just trying to codify it in many ways, and a lot of it is really just, again, getting the mechanics down as far as the process and what's required on the permit application. And the fees or the maintenance security that would be required, our process for issuing the permit. Protection of the township and the taxpayers through ensuring that there's proper insurance and indemnification when they do work within the right of way that includes, infrastructure upgrades or installation. Notification of the commencement of work to all the residents, businesses and property owners where it's gonna be happening, so that they're aware when the time comes, when work is gonna take place, how long it's supposed to take place for. Our general construction standards and the expectation of what the road will be like basically during the process of construction, hours of construction, how it's gonna be put back every day, overnight if they're not working overnight, which would require the specific approval of the Public Works Department under extenuating circumstances. And then last but not least, again, after you've made all those improvements, essentially ensuring that everything's in good working shape after a year or so, like we do security releases with land development. So without going into too much detail on the specifics of it, again, it's just putting a process and administrative procedure in place that's a little bit more robust than we've currently had for a number of years for the benefit of our residents, to ensure that our roads remain in good shape as infrastructure work is being done or installations being done with them. And to make sure that we, on township staff side, have the ability to enforce as needed. The township solicitor's office has been working closely with us to make sure everything is on the up and up and as far as requirements for state law and working with the PUC. But our expectation is that what we're putting together will be able to be implemented and be helpful in, hopefully the next few weeks after we have a hearing for it, hopefully. I'm happy to take any questions you might have about the draft. We can discuss it offline if they're detailed, but again, this is just kind of continuing in the process. We hope to deliver you a final product soon.
Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, item 7, review of 5011 Hamilton Boulevard driveway access request. Mr. Tranguch, Mr. Cisco.
Mr. Solicitor.
Mr.
Fisher.
Did you tell me that?
Pinch hitter.
Did I get it wrong? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Mr. Fisher.
Yes, sir. Okay, so you have heard about this one before. This is the driveway for the rec center that is next to this property that has no driveway on Hamilton Boulevard. They unfortunately bought this property not knowing that there was no driveway license in existence anymore. They just assumed it was their driveway that they could use. They had initially approached us about a commercial use for that property and getting that license back in place with the township. We communicated back to them that that was not going to happen. Their next suggestion was that they would want to use it for a residential use, but they would want to use it as a multi-family residential use. So a unit on the first floor and a unit on the second floor. Based on discussions with staff and internal discussions, we've communicated to them that the preference of the board would be to keep it as a single family use as it was in the past, when that license was in place before it was expired on its own. So we've communicated that to them. They may want to come to discuss it with you directly at a meeting, if you're inclined to hear them out. They're kind of in a situation at this point because they own this property with no access to it, and they plan to rent it. So they weren't planning to use it as their own residence. So it may not be viable for them to own it as a single family rental, based on, I guess, what they bought it for. So before we kind of tell them whether to come or not come, we just wanted to confirm that the board's preference is maintaining that single family use, and that the board is willing to grant a license for that use, but not anything else. That's really just what you're looking for, some feedback so that we can tell the current property owner.
Commissioner comments, questions? I mean, I'll I don't wanna see it be anything other than what it is. I mean, I understand the predicament they're in. They bought something without due diligence to make sure that they actually can use the driveway. I have no problem allowing that license to go through if it remains what it was. But to create a new multifamily dwelling or a commercial residential is not what was intended or what's there. So I mean, they can come and make their case, but I don't see anything they're gonna tell me to change it other than it's not affordable for them to keep the piece of property they bought without knowing exactly what they were buying.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair. I got just one question, only to do with the driveway, so they legally, even if they used it in the past practice, they have no rights to use that driveway that they're using now.
Actually, the fact that they had a license agreement actually hurts them. Because it was a permitted use, they would have to make an argument that they were using it without permission and had some sort of like prescriptive ability to use that, but because that license agreement existed, they would have a harder case to make out. So, I think what's going to happen for next steps, as far as, we will give this feedback to them, of course. They may ask for the license for the single family use, just so they could sell the property with a driveway license. So we may be back in front of you one way or the other, just to have an approval of granting that conveyance of the license agreement to them. Whether it's single family or not. So, to be continued, we'll be back in front of you after further discussions.
Yeah, my take is for now, the single family is going to get considered. Depending on how the development or undevelopment of that building and so forth works out. That might change, but so if they want to wait 2 or 3 years before they
Right.
no, that's one thing. If they want to do something now, yeah, just listen.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
So I think I spoke to Vince and Mark about this last meeting. But I mean, it's such a strange circumstance, right? So say, not that we ever would, but wouldn't have renewed the agreement. I mean, what were their other options to access their property?
Helicopter.
I know, right? I mean, you think there must have been, there must have been a back shared alley access at one point, I would assume, right? Well, that's typically the way they.
I think you're probably right, yeah, I don't know.
Now, you get the fact that you're talking about HOP onto a state road, and it's not like you're gonna change that. Even if when the time comes that we get rid of West Coastal Rec Center and it opens up, maybe the possibility of selling that to the landowner, we're not getting a second entrance for our park, because you're talking about putting in another entrance onto a state road, which is not gonna happen, ever. So it's an odd situation that predates any of, well, not more, but it predates the rest of us, with what goes on here. All right, thank you,
Thank you.
Solicitor Fisher.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8, review of fleet plan, Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Cisco and I will, kind of cover this topic. We've talked extensively over the last several years about our, ongoing, development of long-term planning, as a staff. And to, make sure we have that, so we're acting in a responsible manner over, the course of the next 5, 10 plus years. One of the items that we've identified, Commissioner Robert has definitely looked for in the last period has been an update to our fleet planning process. With the arrival of Mr. Cisco, one of his first kind of items to look at has been our public works fleet, and all of the items that are currently in that fleet. Come up with a ongoing type plan that will kind of help paint that picture of what the fleet is, what it looks like, and what's going. Out of that internal work, we actually have a draft plan that we're looking to use as we've presented our budget for 2026. The first year of those capital vehicle planning items. But out of the plan has come a draft, 5-year fleet planning document. So we wanted to share that with the board in its draft form, make sure we're in the appropriate, mindset of that. We're preparing a document that's easy to understand, clear to the public, and gets us to our long-term goals of, both, maintaining a fleet, having an expansion potentially of certain items that we may need specially, so that we can perform our work efficiently, and most importantly, fiscally responsible, manner to the residents. So, Doug can always give you some of the specifics. I don't want to steal his thunder. What we're looking for is just to make sure, like I said, we're on target. If there's things we need to address or look at, we can do that. And then, explain the general, workings of the plan, kind of how we looked at that. And then if there were specific questions, from the board, about maybe some needs for things, to either get us thinking or get you, kind of an answer on, how we approach the plan. So, Doug, if you have anything that.
Thank you, Bruce. One of the big things since I've been here was the goal to start the fleet plan. And this has no reflection on the equipment that was purchased in the past. We have great equipment, quality, top-notch equipment. It's well maintained. But I think the process was, I've been watching, observing, seeing what our needs are, what we have, what we don't have, what we need, what we don't need, what is being used, how it's being used. So I came up with this fleet plan. And the big thing is this fleet plan, it's a living document, it's very fluid, it changes. It could change year to year. It's kind of hard, you have probably standards of how to replace things and why to replace things. But I have a prediction 2030, that can completely change due to for circumstances. So that's the key is it's fluid, always changing. But we came up with some criterias to this fleet plan was the vehicle's mileage, the age, the usage, condition. Before that, I had to go out and find out actually we had to go out to find the years of what the vehicles are, the miles, the condition, the maintenance records. So it's a very lengthy document. It's over 50 pages. If there's any questions, let me know. But one of the big things we had to do is come up with, determine what departments we have. Of course, we have the roads department, the sewage, the parks, facilities, codes, / administration, recreation, and the fire department. I apologize, I did not get in the fire department equipment. I just didn't have a chance to, but that would be in a later date, which is hence fluid, it will continue to change. So we came up with the departments. Within the departments, we came up with what we had in the departments. I'm not gonna go over everything, but we have 10 categories. If you can see in the document you have it, we have heavy dumps, light dumps, pickup trucks. We have specialty trucks, SUV / code administration, heavy equipment, park mowers, trailers, specialty equipment. And we broke it down into what they're actually used for. I'll use, for example, the heavy dumps. I mean, everybody basically knows what a heavy dump is, but they're used for salting and plowing. Those are the vehicles you see every single day. We currently have 11 big trucks considered out there, and 10 are used for snow removal. One of the first things I noticed, we only have one backup truck. Unfortunately, we did not have a bad winter, but something like that, because if trucks go down, we do not have the equipment to provide that service. So that's one of the things we look at. We also looked at is what would be the cost to replace all these dumps? If we had to replace all those dumps, it'd be $3.1 million to replace them all at once. Some of these vehicles were bought at the same time. So we're trying to figure out, what's the best way to go ahead and come up with a plan to how to replace these things, as opposed to just randomly going out and saying, we're gonna replace this because we want to replace this. So we came up with standards. There's, unfortunately, the way the public works is, people probably know this, there is no set category or definition of when you replace a truck. So we looked at standards across the board, and I listed them in there. Like, for example, you have Philadelphia Public Works, Pittsburgh Public Works, and the standard when replace things. So we had to come up with a standard. For example, industry standards in the city of Philadelphia is 12 years. Pittsburgh, 7-10 years. The American Public Works Association is 9 years. So we had to kind of come up with a category of how we're going to replace things. So, for example, heavy dumps, we have 12 to 14 years we try to start replacing equipment. Unfortunately, we have equipment, heavy dumps that are past that age, 20 years, 19 years. They're past the life. So the big thing with the fleet plan is trying to determine when we can replace this equipment and get a good return on investment, as well as provide a safe, reliable equipment for our residents as well as our staff. So with that, going past actually going through all the equipment and actually we're got the physical miles off, how many miles are on equipment, or hours of equipment, and talking to staff and once again observing like how many mowers we need. So it's a very long process. So basically came up with industry standard of when we're gonna Lower McCundy Township, when we're gonna start replacing things. And that is on page 25 in the fleet plan. And like I said, it's very extensive. With this said, it's fluid and like we are behind on switching some things out. Which doesn't mean that we have to replace things because this document says replace it. It once again goes back to the mileage, the usage, and what we can use that piece of equipment for. For example, some of you guys might know we have an old road grader. It's 20-some years old. We're not going to replace it because this is telling us to replace it. We only use it so many times a year. If that would go bad, we'd look for a used one. So this is just a guideline to help us work away through the process of each year. So when the budget season comes along, we can answer the board to say, why replace it? Well, it's because these standards say this truck is this old. It's getting bad, return on investment. So it's basically, the fleet plan is basically a guideline, it's a tool to help me and everybody else in the department to present to the board of how we're gonna replace a piece of equipment we have. That's it in a nutshell. I mean, I know it's a lot of information to look at. We did use the 2026, the budget that we talked about a couple weeks ago. That is in here. It's pretty much word for word, the stuff that Bruce talked about in the capital is in here, and it continues on to 27, 28, 29, 30. I don't want to. There's a lot of information. Any questions?
Okay,
Yeah, I think it's important to us to, knowing that, putting consistency in these type of things for both budgeting, and as Doug said, knowing, an expectation for fleet size, right, helps us always financially, have that picture where, as he said, we're not maybe front loading, more equipment than necessary, just to catch up and meet a standard. We start to know and have that expectation every year back to the board. We need to order for say one large dump truck, one pickup truck, so we have that financial component, and there's an understanding of that. So I always think for budgeting, that's a good thing, as well as explaining to the board, that, as Doug said, getting rid of this equipment at a certain point where we have maybe a vehicle in the code department that's 21 years old at this point. We know there's no return on investment. We're not going to drive it until it's no longer drivable, where we don't want our fleet to get that way. We want to see those higher auction values to make the affordability of those new vehicles as well. So there is that break even where we start to lose money when we put those out, and we can capture that a little bit earlier. So, once again, if you guys have any kind of feedback, would like to just, I'm going to kind of set that internally as policy, unless the board would like to, do something further at a board level to kind of acknowledge that side of it. But have that updated annually, provided, and then have it as an ongoing budgetary component of where this is. So,
any commissioner comments or questions?
Just a comment, not a question or a suggestion. The townships ever consider a fleet maintenance company take over total maintenance of their vehicles?
I do not know that, but it's ironically you asked that. I did reach out today. Somebody must read our minutes of the meeting. Enterprise has a lease program for smaller like SUVs, administration vehicles. They did reach out to me today about leasing vehicles. Ironically asked that, but for maintenance wise, I don't know if anybody does that or not. I don't know. I would definitely look into it. Yeah.
The only reason I bring it up is one of the companies I used to work with turned the whole garage over.
Oh yeah.
To a third party for total maintenance of their whole huge fleet, and
Yeah, definitely.
that's why I brought it up.
I'd be interested in something like that. Yeah.
Took over the whole garage, all the equipment, and that's why I brought it.
Okay, thank you. Doug, let me ask you this question. So you're a year, right? Just about a
And a
year?
couple more weeks.
Okay, almost a year. So what is your overall opinion on the health of our fleet as it currently stands?
Health of the fleet, like I said, is the mechanics who work on it, they do a great job. Our equipment's in great shape. It's just reevaluating some of the piece of equipment we might not need or not using properly. Or Bruce said that the one code vehicle, or we have a vehicle back in the public works that the seasonals use, it's beyond the point of getting return on investment. But using it in certain vehicles, from other departments, and redistributing them to different departments is a plan we're kind of looking forward to doing. For example, some of Vince's equipment over there, repurpose them to the recreation department or something the seasonals can use. But overall, our overall status for our vehicles, we have a really good equipment, some top-notch equipment around. Very impressed with.
And then the second question is, and you know, this all goes to continuing improving what we do, how we do it from efficiency standpoint. The 9 large dump trucks that we use for salting and plowing. Do we have to get to a point like in the year where they're flipped over to just that and then they can't be used for anything else? Or is it possible to continue to use them how we, depending on what the winter looks like?
No, I would say those type of trucks are made to be used. They're made to be used for not just, it's actually bad for them to sit there and not be used for winter time.
But like what I mean is, let's say it snows next week and we have to plow and it doesn't snow again the rest of the winter. Are they just reserved for snow plow or can you?
No, we
interchange?
no, we utilize them throughout the year. It's just more of getting to the specs, getting to the staff getting used to it. It's probably supposed to be used.
And I think though, we do have, not to jump in here, but we do have there, I wanna say what, 3 at this point. Of those larger trucks, right, that are committed to leaf collection. So as we look at the fleet plan, we brought the new leaf back truck actually online. Is there a way now that gives us additional capabilities with those larger dumps that the leaf boxes can come off of now? Because those 3 are committed, they're chained in, and they would have to be transitioned. Whereas, you know, you can equip salt spreader, and you know, you're picking up plows on larger trucks and you can drop those plows in the shop. And then basically the cover for the salt spreader allows you to cover that, but still haul dirt or gravel or stone on a regular basis. So it's not like we're in a big transition after we get out of that leaf season where, you know, as we actively manage our salt and plow operations, you know, we ready trucks for those snow events, and Doug, you know, when he calls for that part, then they kind of transition a little bit and they're loaded with salt, right? They might be dumping off stone and gravel that they hauled 2 days ago, and we're picking up salt and we're ready to be deployed out. So, yeah, once we look at if you in the fleet plan and potential, I think it's 2029. We're looking at, like, for example, an additional leaf back truck, which then frees up our leaf collection windies that we have that we tow behind, plus those dump trucks, to increase our efficiency. So, and then how will that play out as we evaluate for this year of leaf collection, what that new apparatus is capable of, and how we can actually even allocate additional manpower that we have doing that job now, to complete other public works projects right now in this period where we would have always been transitioned over. So just by one change in the fleet or how we approach that, trickles down through phases of, you know, operations and department. So
How many tandems and how many single axles?
There's 2 tandems and let's say 8. No, not 9 singles. Yeah, 11 heavy trucks, yeah. Now this doesn't account for also Simon, anything we have from Elm, a tandem, loaders and stuff is not included.
the Emmaus, Lower Macungie.
That's a whole different project, but
yeah,
Cooperative.
yard waste
yeah,
component. Because there is another tandem there that we don't use for,
we don't use for snow removal.
yeah, we don't use that in public works operations. We use that for the yard waste type, yard waste recycling as it was intended through the Elm program. So
Okay, and so what are the two tandems basically used?
Right now, everyday operations on stone, run job site, on asphalt.
Wood carpet for the
Wood carpets
playgrounds,
for playgrounds, probably used more with art, moving the mulch and pump the hill. So it uses,
long
Everything.
route for salting, so that's your tandems, you're actually your mountain trucks, and you have a long.
gets up the mountain.
Cause you're further away too from the yard down here, so that's a long route truck for tandem. So,
Are those two Macs, are they Mack trucks?
No, Mac and freight.
Freightliner.
But the Freightliner's getting replaced in 20.
Yeah, that will be, but by the time it comes in, it will be auctioned off until 2027.
Any other commissioner comments?
Well, just a question.
Yes.
The new big trucks, in the past, someone's idea to always get standard shift, which is, going away.
It's pretty much all.
Pretty much gone, so everything we're getting is
We automatic,
automatic.
yeah.
And all of our last larger truck frames since I've been here have all been automatics now.
Right.
And when you take your CDL, if you take your CDL automatic, you don't do it automatic.
Really? Oh, good.
Yeah.
But if you take it on a standard shift, you can do both.
Correct.
It's both.
Item 9, review of stormwater pipe 5-year plan, Mr. Vital.
Yeah, much like we talked about the fleet, we talked about this a little bit of the budget side of it at our budget meetings the last couple weeks. We also took a snapshot, and we continue to take snapshots of what our infrastructure is. One of those items, we talk about fleet, our second one we've looked at is our stormwater underground facilities, including our storm pipes that people may or may not be aware of under streets and everywhere they need to go to take that stormwater towards basins and collection. So what we wanted to look at was initially understand the extensiveness of all the stormwater pipe, including its condition, knowing the pipe types. So our reinforced concrete, our old corrugated metal piping, as well as any ductile iron that actually is floating around here. I think we have a piece or two, and our plastic pipe that works through here. So out of that, we said the same thing. We've identified, a certain length of linear feet of pipe. We're at just under 30,000 now of metal pipe that's in the ground. We know that metal pipe, we have to be proactive as it reaches a lifespan, 30 to 50 years. What do we need to do to make sure that our asset is in good working order? Do we need to find pipe that we have to line? Do we need to look at, digging and replacing pipe in the ground? So the first part of this draft stormwater plan only includes piping thus far that we've been able to work through as part of our video review process. So our field team from CKS, we coordinate and televise pipe to a budgeted amount. We looked at $25,000 this year videoing. We take that video, it's reviewed internally. Condition reports are now made for where we are in the piping, right? Good, fair, poor, priority type of pipe. Will it be difficult for us to dig that pipe and replace? That we want to be proactive and line pipe. We have in future budgets as well. We'll propose budget for next year, the continuation of the actual televising. At some point, we will move out of, we believe next year, we'll move out of that metal pipe, knowing that's our priority, into the concrete type pipe until we get on a rotation over a period of years, probably a 10-year rotation to see every pipe every 10 years and adjust our plan. So we were able to replace that 1,639 feet of linear pipe this year, which was dig and replace. A little over $600,000 that we accomplished. We're taking the pipe by diameters and then linear feet of pipe type. So for example, we know we have 148 linear feet of 36 by 48-inch corrugated metal pipe out there. We're floating around with approximately 5,600 feet of 24-inch metal pipe that's floating. And then we took that and said, well, it's necessary that we repair and replace. So what can we do and look for in our budget that we can prioritize and then have a 5-year component? So we included for the board in the draft document, right? The location of that with its storm run, its diameter, its type of pipe, the length in that location, the actual street location, and its condition, moderate, good, fair, poor, replace, with some notes that the CKS field team has kind of identified. So working off an estimate that I've given them for budgetary purposes, they've set those locations and those sites for us on priority. We know in 2027, we currently have an estimate of like 438,000 to line pipe. At some point in the future plans, we'll look to dig some pipe. And they've taken the sizing, because sizing, of course, corresponds to price for replacement, both in liners when we pull them through and when digging and replacing. And they've grouped those to be within our budget kind of projections each year. So that we're consistent with the funding amount request. So we have this first part. As I said, we don't have at this point, as Doug and I work through the other components, the stormwater basins, the stormwater basin fencing, the catch basins in the street as we're evaluating, and we've started to GIS plot those and do a condition report. It's in its infancy phases for that side. So as we get that data, we're going to continue, as Doug said, this fleet plan, this living document of stormwater facility, much like we do with our sewer pipe. So just as important, the residents usually don't ever see it under the ground or think about it, whereas the pothole in the street, not that we have any in this town, but as they might see a pothole in the street, you might not see a pipe underground that has an issue we need to look at. So I think it's important that we plan for that, know that we have that 5-year component. We'll update. I think we can actually probably go out probably about 10 years now with that, once we get some additional findings. And I think we're in a good spot to have that consistency and be proactive in what we're doing. So unless there's questions about that part of it, we'll continue to work on it. We'll bring it back. I'm going to once again set that internally kind of as policy for us. That's the board wants to look at it for.
One thing, I didn't see any mention of this flushing or cleaning out the debris in some of those stormwater pipes, and where does that get covered?
Yeah, and that is part of this plan. Once we, as we're tagging those, we've had discussions about what will that be in the maintenance budget for bringing that component in and doing those flushings. We know we have CoStar's vendors out there that can handle that type of responsibility. We have flushed some in the last probably 2 years that we found as part of the video process as well. They have to flush before they can grab video. So yeah, it's definitely an important part of this for that maintenance to remove that sediment and make sure we're functioning, as intended. So yeah, it's an important part of this. It's gonna probably end up being routine where we put those components of, we have the stormwater maintenance line item in the general fund where part of that is the videoing, we have that 25,000. And then as we look at this on the flushing and say, we need to spend 10,000 a year of this maintenance to accomplish so much flushing of that component. And in addition to, replacing so many catch basins on the street, as we find and identify those, that also comes out of that maintenance budget. So, identify the top 50 priorities, go see how many we can get done in here.
Okay, well, I just didn't see it as a line item mentioned in the.
Yeah, it's not here yet.
Videotape it, but what's in there? We don't care.
That's it. That's you got it. It's definitely part of the plan too. So
Any other questions?
Just a comment
Okay.
on what Mari said, that is an important aspect, flushing them pipes. With all that, everything you've said, our part's to work it in the budget. Within the budget, it's a lot of work, and just for a note, not a township without a stormwater tax, so.
Well, I think it's something to know, not to interrupt you, but, the fact that the board has been, when we added those things like the stormwater management line item several years ago, the board's been very supportive of what staff has brought forward to make sure we're addressing these type of infrastructure concerns that we're bringing, to the board's attention, where, some places might not be as proactive to include that, or take those recommendations for things we need to look at. So, we are mindful of the budget, but it's a budget that the board supported to make sure we're accomplishing, the improvement of the township, so.
Other comments or questions? Okay, Ash Lane Bridge Replacement Project, Bruce.
Yeah, so, for 2026, we have identified, Ashland Bridge as our, priority replacement, much like the plans we just talked about, Smith Lane in 27. And then we, have a little bit of a year to regroup, but, the engineer's office did, put the Ashland Bridge for 2026 project out to bid. We received 8 responses ranging from, a $583,000 to an approximately $37,000 bid. Brian and his team are working through the bidders to make sure they've met all the requirements. Yeah, we will have a recommendation at some point in the near future. Our timeline is a potential first meeting in December award, so that we're ready to go for the next year. So our timeline on consideration for approval or denial does end in that first week. So we'll have that to the board probably November, just so you can see the recommendation at the workshop. I want to let you know it's coming.
Yeah, we're working with the bidders. There's been some hurdles with some of their qualifications. So it's looking like we may drop down to the third low bidder. But we'll coordinate that with Bruce and Doug, and certainly with the solicitor's office, prior to making the recommendation. But I believe that no matter where we wind up, 1, 2, or 3, we still will be within the budget that Bruce had, the preliminary budget that had been set.
We're monitoring that for our final budget to
Yep.
make sure we're in a good spot.
Yes, and we'll get that out to you guys, shortly.
And then I just had one other item too, just a reminder, Lower Country Road is now open. Little Spur is still closed for another, I think, like 30 days or whatever. But we've notified on our Facebook site, we were notified by the Turnpike project manager that opened actually Friday evening around 6. So we appreciate the residents' patience, even though that wasn't our project. That they were able to for help the Turnpike. So that's what I have for manager updates. I would ask the board, I need an executive if you're able this evening to talk land acquisition and equip personnel item. So unless there's any questions on my end, that's all I have.
I will say I drove Lower Country Road yesterday on purpose just to see. It is wild what they did. Watching that bridge be built and trying to figure out how the road is gonna look, to driving it and looking at the old road saying, how is that ever passable? In 12 days. The other part is, the government project getting done ahead of schedule. Shocking. But yeah, I am fascinated to watch them build Little Spur, because it's gotta come up 15 feet from where it is right now, which is gonna be really kind of fun to watch how they're gonna pull that off, because it's a climb. But even looking at mill race, how long has mill race been closed now? Probably a year.
Yeah.
You would never know the difference. The guardrails in, everything looks normal.
Looks good.
Yeah, it looks really good. So that.
No, that's what we say that, fine, yeah. Said the last bridge looked good, and I'm correct.
I did just want to highlight something in your overall department reports. You know, we talk a lot about things that happen that people don't see or don't realize, and I think the five of us have a little bit more interest in little stuff, but just looking at public works over the, you know, really what you're talking about, maybe the last month or so, just the stuff that's been done or is being done is remarkable. From the playground being finished at Quarry Park to the elevator, you know, we're waiting on the state to inspect it. You know, the Cratchit Park project started, the lights were being installed by PPL or have been installed by PPL. You know, Quarry Park lights, I think Doug, you said they're,
The one call came in today.
the one quote came in today, so, you know, they're looking like, just the number of projects that happen that people don't necessarily see is really remarkable. So thank you to you and your department for making sure all this happens. Whether people realize it or not, it does make a huge difference to the quality of life of the township.
And just to add to that, new collection facility.
Yes, that was on that list as well.
Week 3.
Week 3 of that collection. Is there any public comment on agenda topics?
Excuse me, just wanna, can I add the department report real quick? Oh.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Trent.
Since you only highlighted Public Works Department.
They were first on the road on the list, so.
You have to keep scrolling down. I don't know why Bruce always puts me, or Renee puts me at the end, but.
But I mean, as they come in.
Touche, Renee, okay, I take that one. No, I would just like to, if anybody has any questions on the report, it is in there, but I just wanted to, give an update in case, people didn't know, on October 14th, right here at the community center, the EAC in conjunction with the township hosted, Barbara Mull, speaker from Lehigh Valley Audubon Society. She presented various topics, on native Lehigh Valley bird species, which also focus, on the migration habits in relation to habitat availability here within the township, as well as in the Lehigh Valley as a whole. So it was attended by 69 people. It was a very successful event. So I just want to thank the community center for making those arrangements for the room, any EAC members for their hard work on this event. The EAC wanted to try to bring an event that highlighted the board's preservation here in the township, and it was a good presentation that showed that about maintaining habitat here in the Lehigh Valley, so and township specifically. So just wanted to report that tonight to the board. So
Thank you, Vince. And not to leave anybody out, Recreation Department, they had their first ever trunk or treat last weekend. It was very successful with over 1,000 people attending, which is great. There's a new open gym option now because of resident requests. They'll be offering adult 40+ open gym basketball on Sunday mornings from 8 to 9:45. And a really interesting development, which I think builds off of their successful camp this summer. We've been offering a schools out camp on days where schools are closed. So, you know, when space allows, some of the upcoming dates include December 22nd, 23rd, 29th, and 30th during the Christmas holiday. Also January 2nd and 19th. So just another option for parents who are working, whose kids are out of school, to be able to bring to a one-day camp here at the township. Now I'll ask if there's any public comment on agenda topics. All right, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.